So today what we'll be working on is solving quadratic equations by factoring. So I would like you to do the try this. In the try this, I'll help start you off. It says solve for x. Notice that there are two fractions that equal each other. When fractions equal each other, you cross multiply. All right, so let's write that down. When fractions are equal, cross multiply. Okay, so put me on pause and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so when I cross multiply, I'm going to have 2 times 3x plus 4. That comes from this. And then I'm going to cross multiply the other way. Equals, remember when you cross multiply, they're equal to each other. 2 times 2x minus 11. All right, so now we're going to distribute the 2. So I'll get 6x plus 8 here. Equals, distribute the 2, I'll get 4x minus 22. All right, so now we're going to solve the linear equation. Remember, I've always said that when you have x on both sides, 6x, 4x, it's usually easier to move the smaller one. The smaller one would be 4x. So to move a positive 4x to the other side, we'll minus 4x. So the 4x minus 4x cancel. So now we have 6x minus 4x is 2x plus 8 equals negative 22. Watch the signs. Now I have a number on both sides. So now I have to move this number because I want to keep my x here. So minus 8 since this is a plus 8. So minus 8 to both sides. So I get the 8's cancel. 2x equals negative 30. And then this is 2 times x, so opposite of times is divide. Divide both sides by 2. We get x is equal to, watch the signs, negative 15. That's negative 30 divided by positive 2. All right, so let's talk about factoring. Now, we've already talked about factoring. Now, we're just kind of adding a little bit more, okay? So now, when we factored before, we factored expressions. Now, we're going to factor equations. So when you're going to factor, or actually solve any quadratic, make sure it's an equation. So how do we identify when something's an equation? It must have an equal sign. So it must have an equal sign. Okay, so if you want to write that, you can. If it doesn't have an equal sign, it's just an expression. You can't solve it. Okay, and so make sure it is an equal sign, and you always want to make sure it's equal to 0. So if it's not equal to 0, you have to put it in the correct form. You have to get it to equal 0. All right, we're always going to factor completely. Remember, always look for GCF first. Difference of two perfect squares would be next. 3 terms. Actually, let me write above this. Remember, dots is 2 terms. Right, you have to have perfect squares. Master product would be 3 terms. And grouping is 4 terms. Always GCF first, though. Okay, this always comes first. Okay, after you get it factored completely, you're going to make a T-chart. Okay, you're going to separate your factors. You're going to set each factor, each piece equal to 0, and then you're going to solve it. So once we do this, you'll remember this. All right, so let's take a look at the first one. So the first one I have here is 5x squared plus 10x equals 0. So it is an equation because it has an equal sign. It is equal to 0, which is good. So now I want to factor. So remember, the first thing we always look for is a GCF. So I do have a GCF. There's a number that goes into 5 and 10, which is 5. And then I have an x squared and an x. Remember, it's always the one with the smallest exponent, which is x. So the GCF is 5x. All right, so remember, we put the GCF on the outside of a parentheses. Remember, it still equals 0 because it's an equation. To get what goes inside the parentheses, divide by 5x. So 5x squared divided by 5x, that's just x. And 10x divided by 5x is positive 2. All right, the next thing you're going to do is make your T-chart. So this is what I mean by T-chart. You separate, oh, sorry, I don't know how that came up like a highlighter there. Let me get rid of that. All right, so let me put the 5x parentheses. Okay, so now you're going to make a t-chart. Set each factor, right? 5x was a factor. That was my GCF. And this is my other factor, the parentheses. So you're going to set each one equal to 0. So 5x equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. Now you solve each one. So remember, on the left, 5x equals 0. That's times. Opposite times is divide. X equals 0 divided by 5 is 0. 0 divided by any number is always 0. On the left side, on the right side, sorry, we're going to minus 2 because we're solving for x. X equals negative 2. All right, so my solutions are, sometimes you might see it written as in the curly brackets. Usually the smaller number comes first and then the larger number. So it'd be negative 2 and 0. But you don't have to write it like that. Just be aware. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. We have 27x to the third minus 75x equals 0. So it is an equation. It is equal to 0. I do notice there is a GCF. There is a number that goes into 27 and 75. That's 3. And then I have an x to the third and an x. So there's definitely a GCF here. And it is x. All right, so let's put that down. GCF is 3x. So we're going to put the 3x on the outside of the parentheses. Remember, it's still equal to 0. To figure out what goes inside the parentheses, divide by 3x. 27 divided by 3 is 9. X to the third divided by x is x squared. Remember, subtract the exponents. 75 divided by 3 is 25, so it's minus 25. And x divided by x is 1, so I don't put that down. All right, and then I notice inside the parentheses here, I have 9x squared minus 25. This is the difference of two perfect squares, so I have to factor that again. All right, so remember, two parentheses for dots. Remember, one's a plus, one's a minus. Make sure you bring down the GCF. To figure out what goes inside, we do the square root of each of these terms. So the square root of 9x squared is 3x. So each one gets 3x. And the square root of 25 is 5. All right, so now we're ready to make the t-chart. Now I'm going to actually have two t-charts. Sorry, keep hitting the highlighter. All right, so we're going to have two t-charts. Because I have three factors, right? Remember, 3x is a factor. Set that equal to 0. 3x equals 0. 3x plus 5 is a factor. Set it equal to 0. 3x minus 5 is a factor. Set it equal to 0. Solve each one. Divide by 3. X equals 0 here. Minus 5. Both sides. 3x equals negative 5. Divide by 3. X equals negative 5 thirds. Same thing here. We're going to add 5. So I have 3x equals 5. Divide by 3. X is 5 thirds. So that will always happen when you have dots. These will be the same. One will be positive, one will be negative. 3 answers, 0, negative 5 thirds, positive 5 thirds. Okay, so let's flip over the paper and try number 3. Okay, so number 3, we have x squared minus 4x equals 12. So it is an equation because there's an equal sign, but it's not equal to 0. So we have to move the 12 over to the left. So we're going to minus 12 over to the left so that I get 0 on the right side. So minus 12. So now I have that equals 0. X squared minus 4x minus 12. I cannot minus 12 from anything on the left because there's no like terms. Okay, so I look to see there's no GCF. It's definitely not two terms, so I can't do dots, so it must be trinomial. Trinomial is your master product. So remember, master product, we multiply the first times the last. So I get negative 12x. Now remember, you say what multiplies to 12 minuses to a 4, 6x and 4x. Oh, sorry, 2x. 6x and 2x. When I multiply 6 times 2, I have to get negative 12. So they have to be different signs. But when I add them, I have to get a negative 4. So it has to be negative 6 and a positive 2x. Bring down the ends. The front and the end. X squared and the minus 12 equals 0. 4 terms, factor by grouping. We have the yellow group and the red group. All right, in the yellow group, factor out the GCF. The GCF is x. Then figure out what goes inside. So divide by x if you're not sure. So x minus 6. So in the red group, I noticed there's a plus, so that plus comes on the outside. Look for the GCF. The GCF is 2. Divide by 2. So I get x minus 6. Notice the parentheses are the same. You should always get same parentheses when you factor by grouping. Set up your factors. Notice I still have it equal to 0. Remember, what goes in the parentheses is what's doubled. And what goes in the other parentheses is your coefficient. So it's x plus 2. All right, make your t-chart. Set each one equal to 0. X plus 2 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. On the left, minus 2. X equals negative 2. On the right, add 6. X equals positive 6. All right, let's take a look at number 4. All right, when I look at number 4, I have 2x squared equals negative 9x plus 56. So it is an equation, have an equal sign, but it's not equal to 0. So I'm going to move all this stuff on the right over to the left. I don't want to move this to the right because then I'm going to have a negative x squared, and I don't want you guys factoring things with negative x squareds. So I'm going to move everything that's on the right side to the positive x squared side. All right, so, and sorry you guys hear like the jingle bells. That's because my dog is being crazy. She won't calm down, and that's how she rings to get outside. She rings like the bells. So when she can't go outside because she's being bad outside. So sorry if you keep hearing the bells ring. All right, so minus 9x, I'm going to add 9x. Positive 56, I'm going to add minus 56. So add 9x minus 56. So I get 2x squared plus 9x minus 56 equals 0. So I notice that there is no GCF. So I'm going to use master product, multiply the first times the last. So I have negative 112x squared. So now I'm looking for what numbers multiply to 112 minus to 9. So you could plug that into the calculator. I know it's a large number, but I know you guys can figure it out. Put it in y equals, do 112 divided by x so that you could see your factors. But that is 16x and 7x. They have to be different signs. When I add them together, I have to get a positive 9x. So it has to be positive 16x and minus 7x. Bring down the minus 56. Make sure you still have it equal to 0. And bring down the 2x squared. Now we're going to factor by grouping. Red group, yellow group. In the red group, GCF is 2x. So divide everything by 2x to figure out what goes inside. So I have x plus 8. In the yellow group, notice there's a minus there, so bring down the minus. GCF is 7. So divide everything by negative 7, and I get x plus 8. Notice parentheses are the same. That's what they have to be. Set up your factors. Notice I still have equals to 0. GCFs go in 1. So that's 2x minus 7. And the other one is x plus 8. T-chart. Set each one equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0. All right, on the left, add 7. 2x equals 7. Divide by 2. X equals 7 halves, 7 over 2. On the right side, minus 8. X equals negative 8. All right, so we have one more to work on. All right, number 5. So notice number 5, it's two fractions that equal each other. And remember, when two fractions equal each other, we cross multiply. So it's going to be 2 times 5x squared plus 7x plus 1 equals, cross multiply, x times 3x plus 5. All right, so we're going to distribute the 2. I get 10x squared plus 14x plus 2. Distribute the other side. X times 3x is 3x squared. Remember, when you multiply, you add the exponents. X times 5 is 5x. So I do have my equation, right? I have my equal sign, but it's not equal to 0, so I'm going to move everything over to the left. So I'm going to minus 3x squared, put that under the 10x squared because they're like terms, and minus 5x and put that under the 14x. So I have 7x squared plus 9x plus 2 equals 0 because this is all cancels out. All right, so let's move it up. So I'm looking to see if there's a GCF. I don't see any GCF. I notice it is 3 terms, so we're going to use master product. So I multiply the first times the last, and I get 14x squared. That's positive 14x squared. What multiplies to 14 adds to 9. That's 7x and 2x. They have to multiply to give us positive 14, so that means they have to be the same sign. But when we add, we have to get a positive 9, so it has to be positive, positive. Bring down the end. Bring down the front. Now we're going to factor by grouping. So I have the blue group, and I have the green group. In the blue group, the GCF is 7x. So divide everything by 7x. That'll help you figure out what goes inside the parentheses. So that's x plus 1. There's a plus here, so put the plus on the outside. GCF is 2 times x plus 1. All right, write your factors. So it's going to be 7x plus 2. X plus 1 equals 0. Make your T-chart. Set them equal to 0. And solve it. 7x plus 2 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. On the left side, minus 2. 7x equals negative 2. Divide by 7. X equals negative 2 over 7. And on the right side, minus 1. X equals negative 1. Okay, so that's it. I know the video is a little long, but we had a lot to go over. Okay, I'll see everyone in class tomorrow. Have a good night.